podcast. My name is Laura Rupel, and today we have a bonus episode for Season 2, Episode 15. This is bonus because I'm featuring a bassoonist today, Karla Ekholm, who is second bassoon in the Eastern Music Festival Faculty Orchestra and on faculty here. She was the coach for my woodwind quintet this summer. I really enjoyed getting to speak to Karla about her experience and her life in music. I hope you enjoy the episode.
I'm Karla Ekholm, and I play bassoon in the San Francisco Bay Area. You could say I'm a freelancer, but I have a lot of contracts with orchestras.
And during the summer, you're here at Eastern Music Festival?
Yes, I'm second bassoon at EMF.
How long have you been here?
This is my 38th summer.
Wow! Are you the record holder?
No, but I'm tied. Our principal cellist
That's
came
really
the same year. Yeah.
Can you talk about your start in music?
I started in Texas, and there they are pretty hands-on about choosing the instrument for you. They tested me. I made a perfect score on the little hearing test, so they said, you'll play either oboe, bassoon, horn, or percussion. Not sure what that was about.
Yeah.
But they came and looked at me and said, oh, you're a big girl. You'll play bassoon. Yeah.
Just because you're tall?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you started bassoon in middle school around?
I started when I was 11 in 6th grade. And my hands, even though I was supposedly big, my hands really weren't big enough to cover the left-hand third finger hole. So I was a little compromised for a couple of years.
When did you decide this is something I am good at, this is something I like to do?
I think it was, I moved from Texas to San Francisco and started taking bassoon lessons and was going to a school that had a really amazing orchestra, and I started ushering for the symphony and opera as a volunteer. But music just became a really important part of my life, and I was good at it.
Yeah, I think if you're hearing and immersed in an environment like San Francisco, that's, I'm sure, like being around great music just propels you to do better and better.
Exactly, yeah.
Where did you attend school and why?
I started at San Francisco State because I actually had the conversation with my teacher. My teacher was the principal bassoonist of San Francisco Opera and Symphony at the time. And he said, you know, you have a choice. You want to go into music. Do you want to be the big fish in a small pond, or do you want to be the little fish in a big pond? And he had gone to Eastman, and he said, you know, that's a possibility. And I really wasn't deciding. And he finally said, I think you should just stay here. And you can go to the conservatory. I teach there, but you could also just go to San Francisco State. It'll be cheaper. They've got a big music department, and you'll get the same education. After a couple of years, I learned that a really excellent bassoon student was going to the conservatory. So then I moved over to the conservatory just to play with another great player.
Yeah. In my undergrad, I was in a smaller oboe studio. And so looking at grad schools, that was one of the biggest draws to me, is where has students that can like really motivate me and we can inspire each other to play better.
Exactly, yeah.
Did you get a master's degree in music?
I did, but I took a big break.
Okay.
I started freelancing pretty seriously right after I finished undergrad. And then I was in a car accident. Maybe 6 years later. And so then I went to study at Temple with Bernie Garfield, who I idolized.
Was that kind of to like rebuild and...
It was, yeah, I was injured. I was having a lot of pain problems. And then I just thought, oh, this is the time to go. I had always thought, oh, I'll get a master's, but never seemed a good time. And then it did.
What was something you struggled with in your undergraduate degree?
Oh, easy. Reeds.
Yeah.
Reeds.
Yes. When did that shift kind of get a little easier for you?
It started when I was in grad school that I started to get a little bit more of a handle on it. But really, I think being here at EMF and I've had a lot of different principal bassoons, and seeing all they had to say about reeds has, quite honestly, the reeds have gotten much better in the past 20 years.
Yeah, I think all of our learning curves hit at different moments.
Yeah.
What is some advice you have for younger students entering this career field, I guess?
I think the most important thing is practicing wisely, doing mental practice, doing slow practice, because the thing that can set you back the most is injury. And just be very conscious of unnecessary tension. When your teacher says, do you need to really raise your fingers that high, or do you need to move? Don't be annoyed. Take notice.
Yeah. As you've worked on injury prevention, what are some of the big things that have worked for you with keeping your body in a...
Just as other things that I do,
Yeah.
I love being on a roller and doing sort of angel wings, like vertically, you know. I've been doing yoga. I haven't ever really gotten into Alexander technique, but I know I should.
Yeah.
I do a little self-massage, but yeah, those are sort of the main things. I've tried Feldenkrais and had really good results from that. I've dabbled in everything.
Yeah. But do you do a lot of just like looking at your playing and seeing, oh, does anything look weird? Because that can be kind of where you're holding tension.
Yeah, I do practice in front of a mirror. And additionally, I just have really embraced slow practice, half-tempo practice. I'm not really fond of moving that metronome up and up and up and up. I think that's where we build tension.
Have you ever considered stepping away from music?
No. So I was in a documentary 15 years ago about freelance musicians in the San Francisco Bay Area. During the filming, I broke my finger really badly, all the way through, and it rotated, so now it veers off at a funny direction. And at the time, I was, asked, what would we didn't know. My hand, they were filming and my hand was in a cast and I couldn't play for a couple of months. And we really didn't know what was going to happen. And, the question, what would you do if you can't? I just burst into tears. I just couldn't conceive it.
Because you found what you love and
yes, yeah.
You want to keep doing that?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Have you always been a teacher and freelancer, or is teaching something that's more on the side for you?
Teaching is more on the side just because I'm too lazy to build a studio. But I think, as maybe I transition out of playing, maybe sometime in the next decade, then I'll build. I actually really love teaching.
Yeah.
I don't love promoting myself.
Yeah. That is a thing I think a lot of musicians struggle with. Has your career focus changed?
It really hasn't. Oh, well, it's changed from when I was starting out thinking I was going to become principal bassoon of the San Francisco Symphony. But I've settled into a set of jobs that really suit my skills better. And so ever since that happened, and that, by the time I was in my 30s, I had settled into what I really wanted to do.
I think a lot of people talk about the definition of success having to kind of change for them and to remind themselves, like, having a job in music is success. It's not just the top 10 job in music that means success.
And I actually realize now I would not be happy playing principal bassoon in a major orchestra. I actually play sort of half and half second bassoon in big orchestras, symphony orchestras, and principal bassoon in chamber opera companies and chamber orchestras and smaller orchestras.
Cool.
So although I think the skills are a little more similar than principal bassoon in a big orchestra.
How would you define the term detour for your life?
I think the detour moment for me was being in a very, very bad car accident and a severe whiplash pain that's extended to this day, and really couldn't play for a very long time. I actually trained my roommates who were not musicians to make my blanks for me because I couldn't. And then what spurred me to go back to get a graduate degree. That was a huge detour.
Yeah, there are a couple people who you find out have been in maybe a major car accident or a major life event that really are overwhelming to see how people have come out of those things. And a lot of times, like you said, it can make technique stronger because you have to really work without tension or work in a more balanced way for you. And so I think it's great to hear that you're still doing what you wanted to do after that. What brought you to the job here at EMF?
I saw the ad at the back of the International Musician Union paper, and it said Second Bassoon, that I could come audition in Greensboro or I could go to New York. And at the time, my parents were living outside of New York, Westchester County. I thought, okay, I'll go visit my parents. It'll be cheap because I can stay at their house. I'll do this audition. I mean, it'd be fine if I win, but no big deal if I don't. And it was interesting. It was at the Wellington Hotel, which is near Carnegie Hall. And I went in, and there was the founder of this festival. He was sitting behind a table, and it was a pretty short audition, 10 minutes. And there was no screen, there was no, it was just him. And then I left, and I went and got my first ever egg cream, and I went to Padelson's music store. I went back home, and my parents said, so how'd you do? I said, I don't know, I'm not really sure. No, you have to have a feeling. No, I couldn't read him at all. I had no idea. And I didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. And I was back home, and then one morning at 6 a.m, I got a call. I guess they didn't notice that I was on the West Coast. And they said, we'd like to offer you the job as second bassoon at EMF.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of the people in the faculty orchestra now are students here. Do you recognize some people from when they were students?
Yes, Karen Birch-Blundell was in a quintet that I coached.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What are some of your current goals for your own field of bassoon playing right now, or just individually for coming out of the pandemic?
My goal is always I'm trying to get better. I go to the studio master classes. George Sekicki, he says, you don't have to come. No, I want to hear what you have to say about tone production.
Yeah.
And the reality is, when you're over 60, I'm not sure that I'm getting better, but at least maybe I'm not getting worse.
Yeah. That's a good goal all the time.
Yeah.
I know that there are some musicians who are maybe at the very end of their careers, and people ask, why do you still practice so many hours a day? And they say, I think I'm getting better, or I'm trying to learn something.
Yeah. And I will say additionally, a little bit off topic, but I had COVID. I now have lung damage and COPD, and in my pulmonary therapy, they're saying, we want you to keep on playing bassoon.
Yeah.
Because it's good for the health of my lungs. So now I have that additionally.
Yeah, that's kind of a good way to look at our instruments, is they're kind of keeping you alive in more ways than one.
Yeah, it's really a healthy thing to have this slow exhalation. It's great.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
So, Sibelius. Music begins where the possibility of language ends. And I just think, there's music expresses things that are a little more complex than we have language for, especially emotion and feelings, I feel. And I also, sort of as a sidebar, I feel like music as a language is something we need to acquire before we get past our early 20s. Like, we really need to be immersed in music to understand the language of it. We can appreciate the beauty of it or whatever, but I think the real language of music it needs to be acquired before a certain age. That's my feeling. I will also say I liked Virgil Thompson. I've never known a musician who regretted being one. Whatever deceptions life may have in store for you, music itself is not going to let you down. Yeah.
You stand by it.
Yes, I stand by that. I will say, I say I'm a freelance or whatever, I did spend a year in a regional orchestra. I won a job in Virginia Symphony, and I was like, not for me.
I'm from Virginia, so that's interesting.
And, I was like, I love getting health care, but otherwise, that's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think people say that, but it makes sense that you would have to try to realize.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are pushing, entrepreneurial musician, or like the freelance musician, the portfolio musician, and I think, you never know what's right for you until you try it, and until you see the full picture, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Laura.
I'm very grateful to Karla for sharing her story for the podcast, and I encourage you to catch up on old episodes as we enter a new school year and more interviews to come. Thanks. If you'd like to keep up with the podcast, there are multiple ways you can do so. First of all, you can go to our website, which is detoursandmusicpodcast.weebly.com. You could also subscribe to our YouTube channel, also called Detours and Music Podcast. We also have a Facebook page and Instagram account where you can like and follow us. The Detours and Music Podcast is available everywhere that you listen to podcasts, but on Apple Music podcast apps, you can subscribe and rate us. If you ever want to get in touch with me and give more direct feedback, you can email me at detoursandmusicpodcast@gmail.com. As always, thank you for listening, and I hope you catch the next one.